I know someone else who's really going to add to today's discussion, our Montgomery County Council member, Craig Rice. As we said earlier, he is the youngest African American to ever serve on the 9-member council and only the second African American man to serve in that role. Craig, you are constantly dealing with the issue relating to language and the community. So I know that you definitely have something to say on that topic. So come on over. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. So, where do I begin? I think I should start off with a little bit of life history. I grew up here in Montgomery County. My mother is from rural South Carolina, a small little place called Roundo, and my dad from Hampton, Virginia. And I heard the stories as a young man growing up about the rural South and dealing with race and dealing with the challenges. So I heard it from my grandmother, who I was fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time with as we visited in the summers, but also from my mother. But I had a unique experience of growing up across the street from a gentleman by the name of George Haley. And some of you might know that name rings a little true because he was Alex Haley's brother. And so I had the opportunity to walk directly across the street and learn about roots. I had an opportunity to meet and spend time with Rosa Parks and talk to her about some of the challenges that she faced and the decisions that she made. And I think that oftentimes we forget about my generation. We talk so much about the millennial generation. We talk about all the different generations that are out there, but we forget about the one that's just removed. And I think that what you just heard about is so important because we also have a story to tell. Because we were the generation that came about right after the civil rights movement. So we experienced the change that happened, for good and for bad. I remember growing up and being in school when I was in the Magnet program, which was a gifted and talented program. And that was really when I first started to experience racism. Very upfront, to where because I didn't talk like some of the other kids, they called me Oreo, called me Uncle Tom. We were the recipients, our generation, because it was very interesting if we think about it. Our parents were very keen on making sure that we didn't suffer the same sorts of discrimination that they experienced, and were so intentional and so purposeful in terms of making sure that we had every single benefit possible so that we could succeed, that we actually moved so far away from a lot of our culture. You know, and it's something interesting that I think that, again, we need to remember as a part in a context of our conversation. You know, it's one of those where still to this day, I'll never forget when I first started having the ability to call people and talk to them about business transactions. And so I'd call on the phone with one of my first professional jobs, and I'd talk to them, and then I'd meet them. And they'd look at me and almost faint because they did not think that Craig Rice was black. And I think that's important for us because still to this day, and I don't think that as a part of our language discussion, we realize that it's become ingrained in our society. People tell me, "You speak so well. You're so articulate. You're so well put together." And I think to myself, what else should I be? But the reality is that as I look at my children, I see that the language in our community has also changed to where we've gone away from the N word. But I just want you to reflect on one word and tell me what it is that you think about when you hear it. Ratchet. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about ratchet? A word that's infused in our urban culture, in our hip-hop culture, in our society as a whole, that we refer to other people as. And as the father of 2 young daughters, the reality is that when you think ratchet, you think of a young black woman twerking in booty shorts. But yet we use that. It's the new N-word, especially for our young black women. There are so many that are out there that we have now replaced. And it's interesting because now in our politically correct culture, we refer to people as hood, as urban. What do those words truly mean? What's behind those words? And what's the image that's portrayed when they're there? Because the thing about it is, we may have escaped a singular word in the sense of not using that particular exact word. But the meaning behind all these other words is still the same. The level of inferiority, the level of you are beneath me, that I expect little from you. And the problem is that our young children are learning those same sorts of things and referring to each other with those same sorts of words. And so the challenge is, by keeping and not checking the language usage, what happens is that we ingrain a new generation to continue to feel the same damn way. So what has truly changed? You know, it's interesting. It's one of the things that I thought about when we were writing my bio. And it's one of the things that I was always cautioned about in saying, well, you're the second, African American to serve in the role. You're the youngest African American. The problem is that that's a problem. That's a problem. When you think that in a community like Montgomery County, I'm only the second black man to serve on a 9-member council representing 1 million people that are a majority of color. What's wrong? And I say to you that part of the problem is that we still have a perception. When I first ran for office in 2006 for the Maryland House of Delegates, I knew when I walked neighborhoods in Potomac that it was going to be difficult for me to make sure that folks understood that I would be able to represent them. And so my team and I had a long conversation about this, and I made sure that I had a walk piece that showcased my family. Because the very first question, oh, that's very nice. Do you have a family? Well, what does a family have to do with the fact of me representing you and the ideas that are listed here that I want to make sure have happened? The reality is I'm less of a threat if I'm a family man. A young black man who's a single man who's out there is still portrayed as a threat. And so the key is that I think until we have truly redefined what it means to be a person of color, whether it's black or Latino, because we see that our Latino and Hispanic brothers and sisters have the same challenge. And now we're seeing it with our Muslim community as well. The reality is that we've come a long way, but a long way is really not that far. Because the challenge for us, and I want to give kudos to the First Lady, not just for her work, but also for her husband, who I have tremendous respect for and admire, is that being number 2 is so much harder. Because you have to live up to the expectations that were out there from the first, but then people also say, well, we've done that. And that's why I wish that Stephanie had been here to hear what my concerns are, because while I'm proud to have a black president, my concern is, will it ever happen again? And that's something that we need to keep at the forefront, because people will say, we've been there, we've done that. And will second guess anyone who else comes along, because they'll say, what else can you do different? It's those kinds of things that, again, are a continual part of what we live each and every day. Me, as a young black man who chairs the Education Committee, wants to make sure that I talk about my experiences so that my kids will truly be able to experience a better world. And we say that, all of us say that, but in reality, we have so much work to do to truly make that a reality. And so I look forward to engaging in this conversation, because I think that as we talk about language, as we talk about embracing the conversation about race and reality and what our expectations are, I'll close with a story that some of you may have heard before. About 3 years ago, yeah, it's been about 3 years now, I was at my local Giant. And Giant hates it when I tell this story. I had come from the gym. I was in sweats. And I had used the little automated system to log in all of my groceries, and had gone to the register and keyed in my little scanner, packed up my groceries, and was walking out of the store. And a young lady stopped me and said, "Excuse me, sir, did you pay for those items?" Now, again, this is my home grocery store that I go to probably about 2 or 3 times a week. I know a large number of the staff there and the management. And the reality is that after they had called the manager to the front, and I had been very upset about the situation, and they profusely apologized, I just want you to remember, that was 2013, with a man who was a member of the Montgomery County Council, one of the richest councils in this nation, in charge of 1 million people and a $5 billion budget. If it can happen to me, what's happening to the rest of our kids? That's where we are right now. And that's how we need to do more work to make sure that we truly are changing the dialogue. So thank you.